Happy first grade. We are going to continue working on the Hansel and Gretel paths, but today we're going to take it up a little notch. We have the same targets. I can use addition and subtraction strategies to find the sum, and I can skip count by 5s and 10s. So yesterday we talked about how Hansel and Gretel used pebbles to count every step that they took so that they could trace their way back to Dad's house and not get lost in the woods. Well, today they discovered that they had a problem. So they came to a fork in the path. And the reason that we call this a fork in the path is it kind of looks like a dinner fork, like something you'd eat your spaghetti or your mac and cheese or your salad with, right? So they're walking along here and they came to a fork, which means they could go this way or they could go this way. So depending on where the fork in the path is, the next pebble might be too far away to see it, right? So if they're here and they drop their pebble here, it might be too far away for them to see. So they came up with an idea. They could just go down one path until they found the next pebble, and then if they didn't see it, they could turn around and know that they have to go down the other path. Well, then they thought about it some more and they thought that could work, but what if they go too far down the wrong path before they turn around? Maybe there's another fork in the path, or then maybe they get lost before they turn around. So they wondered, is there some other way for them to know which way to go before they made a guess and tried one path instead of the other? So what they decided to do was they were going to place a pine cone halfway between every 2 pebbles. So if this pebble and this pebble are 10 steps away, they're going to put a pine cone halfway through. So this is step 1 and this is step 10, right? That's too far. They might not be able to see it. So they decided, what if we put something halfway in between to help us figure out which way to go? So halfway between 0 and 10, if we think about it on a number line, guys, we have 0 and we have 10. Halfway in between is 5. So that means every 5 steps, sorry crew, Miss Ackerman has a really sore throat and it's affecting my voice. I'm trying to talk loud so you guys can hear me, but just know that I might cough a couple times. But anyways, between 0 and 10, halfway between 0 and 10 is 5, which means in between their pebbles is going to be a pine cone, and that's going to mark their 5th step. So, this is their 5th step, right? Because it's halfway between their first step and their 10th step. So now that we know that a pine cone is going to go down every 5 steps, we can start to count more efficiently. So it says, Hansel and Gretel decided to take care of their problem by marking the 5th step between every 2 pebbles with a pine cone. Here is a section of the path marked with pebbles and pine cones. Use the clues to figure out the number of steps it takes to get to each of the pine cones or pebbles marked with an empty box. So they gave us some clues along the way, but there's some empty boxes that we need to figure out. So we know that this pebble, because they told us, this pebble is the 10th step, right? And remember, they said in between their steps, they were going to use a pine cone to mark the 5th step. Halfway between the pebbles 0 and 10, they were dropping a pine cone to mark their 5th step. And we can look at that and we realize that that's true because 10 plus 5 gives us 15, and this pine cone is at the 15th step. So that means that there were 5 steps between the pebble and the pine cone, right? So think about like jumping on a number line, right? 5 steps. Well, now they're jumping to another pebble, but we don't know what number step they're at. So it was 10 plus 5 is 15. 15 plus 5 is, shout out the answer, 20. So we know that this is 20. And we can verify that by counting by 5s. 10, 15, 20. So it's just like another jump on the number line. We're jumping by 5s. 10, 15, 20. Okay, what about this one? Let's go to this pine cone. So if we look backward, we can see that this pine cone was the 35th step. There's 35 steps that they've taken. Well, we know that every hop between a pine cone and a pebble is 5 steps. So we can figure out what this pebble is. This pebble is the 35 plus 5 steps. So 35 plus 5 is 40. So if we know that this pebble is the 40th pebble, we know that the next jump is going to be worth another 5. So now we have 40 plus 5 more equals 45. This pebble is the this pine cone is the 45th step. We could have done this, crew, without figuring out the pebble first, because we know that every jump between pine cones is plus 10. Every jump between a pebble and pine cone is plus 5, but every jump between pine cones is 10. So if we had to figure out this pine cone, let's do it by jumping pine cones. So this is pine cone 45. We jump 10, so we're at 45 plus 10 is 55. So this is the 55th pine cone, the 55th step, sorry. Then we're going to jump another 10 to figure out what this guy is. So we have 55 plus another 10 is 65. So this is the 65th step. Well, now they want us to go back and mark all of the rest of the pebbles and pine cones with the number of steps it takes to get to each of them. So let's go backward. So we're going forward just like we do on a number line. And remember, when we go forward, we're adding. When we go backward, we're subtracting. Guys, this is no different than a number line. The only difference is that we have these cute little pictures instead of the dashes on a number line. So let's go back and figure out what this pebble is. This pine cone is the 65th step. When we go back, we're going to subtract 5, which means we have 65 minus 5. Remember, when you're setting up a horizontal equation, you have to stack the numbers, because if you don't, you're going to end up with something really wonky. So my 1s have to be stacked and my 10s have to be stacked. 5 minus 5 is 0. 6 minus nothing, so we say 0. 6 minus 0 is 6. So this is the 60th pebble. All right, crew, that's all that we're going to do on the teacher page. On your student book page, you're going to continue to do some more work. So you're on student book page 56, and you are going to fill in the missing numbers. So for each path section below, fill in the blanks to show how many steps it takes to reach each pebble and each pine cone. So you're filling in the missing blanks. And then down here, you're going to get some practice by counting forward by 5s to fill in the missing numbers. So this says you start with 10. So start with the number 10, count forward by 5. 10, 15, 20, 25, keep going. Then you start with 35. 35, 40, 45, keep going. Then you start with 65, and you're filling in the blanks on this little chart. When you get down here, you're starting with the number 90. Okay, you're starting with 90. All right, when you finish that page, flip it over and you're going to do the same thing, but you're counting backward. You're counting backward, which means each hop is -5. So 100 minus 5 is 95. 95 minus 5 is 90. 90 minus 5 is 85. 85 minus 5 is 80. Okay, and keep doing that through all of these blanks. Remember, you're going backward, you're subtracting 5. This challenge is optional. You do not have to do it. If you want to challenge yourself, that's great. I encourage you to do so. But the most important thing that I want you to work on is counting backward and forward by 5s. And to get that practice on page 56 with the pine cones and the pebbles. Okay, so once you're done, snap a picture of your pages and upload it to Dojo and I'll take a look.